We are really, really, really pushed against a wall right now as human beings. In many ways, we have been for centuries, but it's really up in front of us. And so the suffering is real. The suffering is extreme. The suffering is taking lives. And I just want this book to help save people.
Hey, welcome back to the Awe Shift podcast, where we get to find out how successful people make shift happen. And our next guest, today's guest, is a very successful person, not in just aspects of like business success, but self-success. And then from that, the ability to transfer to other people's lives and help them have great success. They're the author of 9 books, #1 New York Times bestselling author, as well as the best way I can describe this person when I met him is like, it's like meeting a warm blanket, like in a great way, like this comfortable, warm heart, genuinely cares. You can tell this person cares about life and other people to a depth that it's needed more, I believe. And so as we get into this conversation today, we're going to be talking about something that we all need, which is to have more happy days, which is the title of her newest book. We had an opportunity to talk briefly on a live stream, but now we get to talk more in depth and get kind of more the stories of the heart and a lot of it behind it. This is a self-proclaimed spirit junkie, and we have on the show Gabby Bernstein. How are you?
Anthony, that's such a nice way to describe me. And I want to just acknowledge that description of a warm blanket, which is so heart opening for me, is actually really moving because one of my core missions, I feel, is to help people feel safe and feel good in my presence, because I believe that it's not about our word, it's about the presence that we bring. And so you're reflecting that back to me in this intro. Meant a lot to me. Thank you.
Good. Happy to hear it. And it's genuine too. I just, I don't even plan these intros. I just I let my heart open up and whatever is in there pours out. So it's from the heart, quite literally. Now let's roll into this. I let this podcast open up wherever you want to open it up. And it starts with a single question. You can answer it however you want. You can be as braggadocious, humble, whatever you feel. And here's the question. Say I'm walking around town. I sit down next to this beautiful woman. It's you. I don't know you. And you turn and start talking to me. Why should I listen to you?
Because I make you feel good, because my presence makes you feel good.
I've never had that
Because
answer.
my presence dissolves the boundaries of the fourth wall. And I help you recognize your own authenticity, just hanging in that authentic truth.
I like that. I've never had that
It's
answer.
so funny that you asked that question, because I have no fourth wall in public settings. I will sit next to someone, and I say the fourth wall like in theater, like that metaphor of like you're on
Keep things
stage and the
behind.
audience is in the audience.
Yeah.
There's just no barrier, and sometimes it can be really alarming for people.
Yeah.
But I think at times it's that feeling of that disarming experience of somebody actually being real
Yeah.
in the instant that you meet them
Mm-hmm.
and dropped in and connected and open and compassionate and kind and warm and even just interested, curious.
Yeah.
It's so heart opening for people. It's so unexpected.
It is very unexpected. Most people don't. Most people don't get any of that kind of stuff. And I find that when I'm around people like that, I will have individuals that I've known for a fifth, a tenth of the time that I have known some of my best friends. But in the ability to connect deeply, quickly, you feel bonded at a level beyond. Like, and
Yeah,
it is like you said,
totally.
it's calming, because I think that we all want to be seen, and I don't know if I can see or want to be seen unless I can at least see you. So in those discussions, do you at least like open up yourself, or is it all just kind of pointing out the perspectives you see?
Well, I think it starts with curiosity and then connectedness, because I'll kind of, whatever the reason, whatever it might be, I'll start to connect. Here's an example.
Mm-hmm.
Yesterday, I was getting laser on my legs and bikini line,
Okay.
which
I
is
haven't
a
gotten
thing
there
that
yet.
women do. And I can't believe it took me 42 years to finally
My
do
wife
it.
was just talking
But
about
it is,
that. I was like, I'll never do anything like that. I'm good.
it doesn't hurt, and it's life changing. And I can't believe I waited this long. But it's a long process, and you're in the room with the person
Yeah.
who is doing it for quite some time. And so you go back for regular treatment. So you're sort of present with this person.
Yeah. Get to know him.
And so I connect to this lovely woman who is doing the treatment, and and whether you realize it or not, we're always picking up what people are putting out.
Yeah.
So I can sense her energy and sort of this disconnected energy, and that she's kind of struggling and going through some stuff.
Yeah.
And so I started to just ask her some questions like, so, how are you feeling? And I don't know her,
Hmm.
right? But I'm just sort of opening up about myself, just being kind, compassionate.
Yeah.
And within a few minutes of being curious, she starts to become disarmed,
Hmm.
and that beautiful truth starts to come through.
Yeah.
And she starts to open up to me about some really big personal things,
Hmm.
addiction in her family,
Yeah.
financial things, relationship things. And little does she know,
You have a
her
background.
client on the table is Gabby Bernstein.
Hmm.
And, she doesn't know who I am. And she's sort of at the end of it, like, I feel like I should be paying
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I did give you a lot of love here. So,
Yeah.
but it was about an hour spent together, really helping her navigate this journey of dealing with addiction in her family, helping her just just feel good in the moment. And by
Yeah.
the end of the hour, I was like, she kind of kept leaning into the negative, and I said, how about this? Why don't we turn it around right now and consider the fact that this conversation was a major first step to you changing your way of living,
Yeah.
changing your perspective.
Hmm.
She was like, I can do that.
Yeah.
And then she looked at me, she goes, I want to be happy.
Yeah.
Gabby, I want to be happy. I was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
next week I'll come back with 9 books for you. We're going to hook you up. Go listen to my podcast, dear Gabby. You can get more.
That's awesome.
And it was like this beautiful moment of, look, I'm not recommending that we all walk around life therapizing random people.
Hmm.
And I'm not recommending that we become empaths that take on the energy of others.
Yeah.
But what I am recommending is that we share our light, that we are authentic, that have the willingness and the bravery to be curious about other people.
Yeah.
And when it feels appropriate and safe, that we, open up the conversation. For me, of course, I mean, this is what I do for a living, so
Yeah.
it's not unsafe for me to do that. But not everybody's. I mean, for somebody, it might just be smiling at a stranger
Something
and
simple.
sharing
Yeah.
your truth in that way.
Yeah. Well, where do you get the energy for that? Because the first thing like I think is like I have kids, and these kids, man, I'm pouring out as a parent. And I'm on and I'm a coach with my clients, and I find that I walk away. I go, man, not that I don't want to talk to people, but I'm like at a certain point I hit my emotional expenditure limit, and it's hard to keep coming from that place. How do you find the reserves at a store? Because you are sought after in such a manner where I'm sure you're being pulled by a lot of people, and I'm assuming it's boundaries set up properly to keep your peace and your tank full. But
Major
like,
boundaries,
yeah,
Anthony.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. What are the things that you find help you manage that energy, and then also how do you fill it back up?
So major boundaries, some are as simple as saying, okay, well, I can only do X number of podcasts in a day, and they may have to be 20 minutes,
Yeah,
like certain people, certain podcast, whatever it might be. Or I can't take meetings on Thursdays and Fridays. And,
hmm,
certain things that I know will take me out energetically, and I've created the boundaries. And I've had the privilege of, I've been in this field for 16 years. So I'm
yeah,
at a place now career-wise where I can set those boundaries.
yeah,
Personal boundaries with people, right? So I energetically decide when I'm going to open that door and when I'm going to close that door. There may be times where I'm on an airplane with somebody. I'm exhausted from the night before. I'm fine. And I've got the door closed and I'm sending out the message. I'm going to be super nice, but I do not want to talk for the next 4 hours. And so that's there. But
yeah,
then there's other moments. In general, I get extremely elevated by the connection and exchange.
yeah,
And it is my life's mission. And it feels very, very, very good for me to witness other people feeling good in my presence, because I know that our presence has the power to heal.
yeah,
And so it's not always the hour I just happen to be there for an hour, right?
yeah,
But it could be the brief encounter with George, the guy who runs the garage in New York City where I park my car.
yeah,
George and I have a real connection. We have a friendship. I've only known him for a few months, and he lights up when he sees me walk in, and I feel the same in his presence.
Yeah.
Why? Because I let that wall down early
Yeah.
on. I like to call people sweetheart, and I like to just, I think that even our language can be disarming. Hi,
Yeah.
sweetheart, how are you?
Yeah.
I speak like that to anybody. Like my team who walks through the airport with me, they're like, you are so fucking nice to people. I'm like, because it makes me feel amazing to
Yeah.
be nice to people.
Yeah. And they probably makes
And
them
then
feel
in the
great too.
moments when someone's being kind of an a-hole to you, and then you
Yeah.
respond with compassion and
Nice.
kindness,
Yeah.
you see everything change in them.
Yeah. Body language changes too. Most people they let the guard down. I
Mhm.
know what you mean. Yeah. It's interesting how
Mhm.
humans work in that manner. And I know you have, because I'm hearing this and I'm going, man, like you have joy, right? You have I in the past people have said, well, how do you find, when you're in a dark place that you get happy and you get to a better place? And I go, you kind of gotta borrow joy from people sometimes. And so it
Mm.
sounds like you're an individual people can borrow joy from, which I'm assuming leads part into this book you've written recently, the Happy Days book.
Mm.
Where did this kind of come to the heart? Because I know when we talked briefly, you were like, I kind of had this feeling. You said, I've never written a book because someone told me to. I wrote the book that felt at the time like the right one to write. So why was this the right book right now?
I knew I wanted to write this book. It's called Happy Days: The Guided Path from Trauma to Profound Freedom and Inner Peace. And that subtitle is really important to tag on here because people will be like, yeah, I want some happy days, but this is a journey, my friends,
Yeah.
to get to happy days. And I had the privilege of undergoing that journey and coming out the other side. And at 36 years old in 2016, I had been at that point 11 years sober.
Mm.
So I got sober at 25 off of cocaine. I'd probably written 7 books. I was a spiritual teacher. I was putting a lot of love into the world, but I was really not the boundaried, healthy, grounded person that's sitting with you right now.
Yeah.
I was still having a lot of extreme anxiety. I was a workaholic. I was controlling everything, all the while doing beautiful things in the world and having a lot of fun, but really suffering inside.
Yeah.
And I started to have almost what I can refer to now as a mental breakdown, where I was literally saying things like, I'm cracking. I can't go on like this. Breakdown after breakdown after breakdown after breakdown,
Yeah.
falling out of control. When I ultimately had a dream, and in the dream, I remembered being a child, having a experience of abuse, sexual abuse, and then being an adult confronting it.
Mm.
And when I woke up from that dream, I was totally rocked and freaked out because it was just this moment of like, holy shit, that is way too true to me. And I am terrified.
Mm.
So I just pushed it down.
Yeah.
And a few days later in my therapy, I really came to fully embrace and accept that that was a truth that came through me as a dissociated memory that was revealed through a dream. This was extremely terrifying, but it was also very heart opening because it explained to me why I was a cocaine addict, why I was an alcoholic, why I was a workaholic,
Yeah.
why I was codependent, why I had so much anxiety, why I needed to control every detail of my life,
Yeah.
why I had been on such a journey of personal growth and spiritual development, seeking.
Mm-hmm.
So I set myself up in a way where I knew, even then at 36 in 2016, I'm going to write a book about this. But I also knew I will not write a single word of this book until I am on the other side.
Yeah. Yeah. Smart.
And so I've spent the last, what is it? So it's 2022. Yeah, 6 years
Mm-hmm.
on a brave journey of undoing the emotional and spiritual disturbances from my childhood that had wreaked havoc in my life.
Yeah.
Undoing those biological patterns, those nervous system responses, the belief systems about myself, the neural loop of storylines,
Mm-hmm.
the truncated energy stuck in my body. And I've spent 6 years on a devotional, therapeutic, and spiritual journey of undoing that so that I could come out the other side and write a book called Happy Days: The Guided Path from Trauma to Profound Freedom and Inner Peace, and put my face on that cover.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a heavy, we'll call it undertaking, right? Because it's something that's for you yourself. It's a big journey as a human. But then to say I'm gonna go external and guide others, that's a whole other step in the direction. Because as I listen to that, I grew up in foster. I had a lot of craziness as a kid, and I don't know how. I couldn't tell you what I did, but at this point, I have a great deal of peace And I've gone to that same depth, like, not wanting to be on this planet at a certain point. And so when you look at that, how often do people have these things going on and they're completely unaware of them? Because I'm assuming part of going on the journey is noticing you have a journey to go down, but some people don't want to even confront that situation.
Well, many people have a similar story to me where they literally shut down the memory and
Yeah.
dissociate. And typically, if it's extreme trauma as a child, or even extreme trauma in general, because as children, it, I'll repeat that. As children, it can be just tucked away, locked up, and dissociated from,
Hmm.
although it doesn't leave you. Your body remembers,
Yeah.
your nervous
Cells.
system remembers, the way you brush your teeth is a response to that trauma.
Hmm.
So there's plenty of folks who've gone through life, and the medium age for remembering dissociated trauma is 50 years old.
Really?
Can you even imagine how I mean, I lived
A long
36
time.
years, locked up. Imagine living 50 years locked up.
Yeah.
Some people live their whole lifetime locked up.
Hmm.
But then there's those folks that remember and they know, but they just move past, push forward, drink over, eat over, work
Mm.
over,
Yeah.
and protect themselves from ever having to face those impermissible feelings. But all those protection mechanisms only end up creating more chaos in the individual's life
Yeah.
because they are forms of running from rather than facing into and befriending.
Yeah. And distraction, I'm sure, too, from the emotion of it all. It's, they drink it away, sex it away, drug it away. It's a way to numb the emotion and feelings of it all, but face it. But that's scary to face those things. Like I remember like my
Terrible.
journey in like 2016 myself. Interesting. It's a very similar time.
Mm.
I didn't even realize it was the same. Like it was 2016 when I was like, I don't like this guy. And I had to go on like a real long journey to figure out me what was going on. But it's a heavy one, man. People around you don't always accept what you're doing. The people that you've
Mm.
befriended that are part of your circle start saying, what are you doing? And some of the people that I'm around were the distractions, that were the ones keeping me from that place of facing it. But I remember sitting on a brown chair and a couch and just staring at walls, asking questions and like crying as a grown man by myself in a room, like, God, you suck. But I wasn't that I sucked and I was like, beating myself. I was like, hey, dude, you suck, but you can get better. Like, I think there's that mentality that people go, I don't want to face it because it's always going to be heavy. But I believe that what you're
Yeah.
saying in this book is there is a path to joy, happiness.
That's exactly right. I mean, this is what you're saying is exactly why I wrote this book.
Mm.
Because when you have unresolved trauma, which is every human being,
Yeah.
because they have trauma with a big T like you and I had, or trauma with a small t, like living through COVID or being bullied or
Yeah.
being told they weren't good enough or not having the right attachment bond with their parent or whatever it might be. Everyone experiences trauma. And what I wanted to do was to live to tell and share the journey and the path, the guided path from that trauma to profound freedom and inner peace. Words I can stand behind. So, what's so fascinating about why I'm so passionate about this book and I'm so behind this book and I have this is my ninth book, but
Hmm.
I've never felt more on mission than I
Hmm.
do with this book
Yeah.
is because when you have unresolved trauma, you can live your entire life running from it, big T or small t, every human.
Yeah.
But if you have the slightest willingness to tap into freedom from that, this book will show you how.
Hmm.
It shows you the exact steps that I took. Your journey may not look exactly like mine, but you may say, oh, I loved that chapter on internal family systems therapy. I'm going to check that out. Or
Yeah.
I loved that chapter on the body-based practices and I'm going to move some trauma through my body. Or I loved, EMDR, whatever it is that you take from it, the spiritual practices, the emotional journey. You can follow everything I've done or you could take from it. But you don't have to figure it out anymore.
Mhm.
You know that you're not alone. You can recognize yourself in someone else. And then the most important thing is that you can see firsthand that your life sentence isn't this trauma, that you actually can come out the other side, that it is possible.
Yeah. I like that.
There were many times in my life where I didn't think it was possible. I'm with you.
Yeah.
And then I have gotten through.
Yeah. And it's necessary to have that belief that it's possible, because if you don't have the belief it's possible, then you don't even get started in the first place.
You can't even believe that you can't even take that first step.
Yeah, it's hard. And I know the one of the chapter, I think the first chapter is willing to become free, right? Which is the aspect of like open. I assume, I didn't read the chapter. I'm not going to lie. But just the headline, the title of it makes me think like, yeah, you got to be willing to at least let yourself go. How many times do you find that people punish themselves because of the trauma? Maybe they're caused it, but they don't even allow themselves to think about coming out because, well, if I come out, someone's going to smash me back down, or I don't deserve to be more.
Most people hide their trauma because there's a chapter in the book called it's a chapter about shame, and it's Speaking the Unspeakable is the name of the chapter. And the reason that so many people don't give voice to trauma or say, I don't have trauma, I'm fine,
Yeah.
I can't tell you how many people have been like, I don't have trauma within 30 seconds of asking them some questions. It's like,
It's
my
quick.
father was an alcoholic, my mother abused me, my did it. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, but that's what shame does.
Yeah.
Shame shuts it down. Shame is such an impermissible emotion that we will do anything we can to avoid it. And some of the shame responses that I write about in the book are attacking yourself, like you just said. So
Yeah.
my shame response was, I'm a piece of shit. That was my story. I'm a piece of shit. It's was my storyline over and over.
Yeah.
Attacking others, blaming, shaming, judging others is another shame response. Dissociating is a shame response, right? Saying like, oh, so many people had it so much worse than I did,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? I found myself saying that.
Interesting.
I found myself, oh, so-and-so's had it so much worse. Well, no, Gabby, you had a pretty shitty experience. So, let's get honest here.
Yeah.
And that deflecting, right? The denial of the shame. And there's all these different ways that we run from, numb out, push down, protect against the shame of having been experiencing any form of trauma, because the trauma, the core belief underneath the trauma is that we are unlovable and inadequate.
Yeah.
So of course we're going to run from that.
We run from it 100%. And then I look at it as like a heavy undertaking too, because you just said a brave journey of 6 years. And my brain goes, man, it's a long time. Like, is there like
really 42 years of life?
Yeah, that's actually very true when you put it that way. But the person is going, okay, this sounds good. I get this. I'm gonna get this book, and you guys make sure you go grab this book. I get this book, I'm gonna go through it. Like, when can I expect to have any bit of feel? Because like if I can think through someone's heart, they're probably going, I'm tired already. My heart's heavy already. I'm gonna go into this. I don't know if I have a lot to give for this journey. What if I crap out midway through? Like, how do you structure that thought?
That's why the first chapter is willing to be free. Because when you have the slightest willingness, that's when God can enter. That's when a spiritual presence beyond your physical sight can take over and open invisible doors for you.
Yeah.
And give you the strength and the energy and the time and the resources to get better. If you don't have the willingness, it won't work. So if you don't have the willingness, this is not your book, or it's not your book right now. But if you're willing to become free, that's the only requirement for opening this book.
Yeah.
And even if you open the book, that's a sign that you're willing. So that willingness is the path forward. The other thing to really identify is, I can say, okay, this took me decades to get to this place of sobriety and being here and doing all this therapy. And I've really fast forwarded the process for people by saying, here's what I've learned. Yeah. Here's the journey I went. I had to go find this
trial and error.
I had to find these therapists. I had to be on this journey so that I could live it and then say, hey, here you go. I did it for you.
Yeah.
Now follow these steps and you can be free.
The vessel, you get to go to, whether it's, I'm going to say it's going to sound bad, but it's like Jay-Z said, like, I sold crack, so you ain't got to. Like, it's
That's right. That's right.
I did the whole thing.
Right. I did cocaine, so you don't have to. So
that's a different world, man. But I love that. I love that you're brave enough genuinely to go through it yourself and then navigate it. And it does take a special energy, because it took me a lot of years. Like, I'm a 6'1", 230-pound former alpha male linebacker in the NFL, black man at that. We don't talk about our feelings. It's not what we do. And it was a lot. It was a huge dive to be able to go on a stage now and share like my emotions and my feelings in the heart of it. And I commend you on the fact that you're doing it in this manner here, having gone through so much, because I don't know if I could be called at the level that's necessary to show up the way you are with this, because here's what I do know, and people don't know. When you're on when you're on the mission to create this, it's hard, right? There's the hardness of going through the process. Then there's the hard part of pouring it into pages, right? There's a vulnerability there. And then there's this space you're in now of like, now I got to get this amazing thing into people's hands. And there's a certain energy draw that humans behind the scenes don't realize. The long podcast days, the emotional expenditure stuff that goes on. There's almost, in my opinion, there's a lot of energy, almost as much energy in getting this in hands of people as it is to go through it. So what are you finding in your moments now is what's keeping you in happy days as you get people to get a hold of happy days?
Well, man, I am so happy. I have such an extraordinary life. I feel so grateful every single day.
Mm-hmm.
I have the felt sense of just extreme love moving through me often.
Mm-hmm.
I have this awareness of how to soothe myself in moments when I get disconnected or when I start feeling triggered. I practice the principles that I preach in this book, and as a result, I live a fucking awesome life.
Here you go.
And so that profound freedom and inner peace that I am embodying right here, right now,
Yeah.
after decades of suffering and addiction and trauma and PTSD and depression and anxiety and insomnia and all of the suffering I've lived, I have the privilege of living on the other side of it right now. And that has given me the strength to do 86 podcasts. I mean, that's like 86 hours in the
That's a
last 2
lot.
months,
I know.
and show up and continue to show up and
Mm-hmm.
have a meeting with my PR team right before I got on here. And I looked at them and I said, I want this book in the hands of millions of people. We
Yeah.
are on our way. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go bigger,
Mm-hmm.
because this is mission work for me.
Yeah.
And when you're on a mission, it's like you're not alone. Gandhi wasn't alone,
Mm-mm.
right?
Yeah.
Martin Luther King wasn't alone. Literal people supporting, but of
Yeah.
course, God,
Yeah.
spirit, a
Mm-hmm.
spiritual connection of your own understanding. And so I know intimately that I am being led through my thoughts. Okay, it's time to up level, change some team members, change this thing, change that thing. That is God speaking through me.
Mm-hmm.
And then letting God work through others to really support this getting out. So it's not all on my shoulders.
Yeah.
I got to ask for help. I got to get the support I need, but I got to stay on mission, because this book, I mean, we are living in crippling times.
Yeah, we are.
People are killing themselves. They are living through war. They are traumatized. Our rights have been taken away, are being taken away from us in this country as women. And I'm not going to apologize for saying that here. It might be triggering for some of your listeners, but these are human rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can cut it out if you want, but I'm saying
We'll keep it in. It's
these are
human. I don't do all that.
human rights.
Yeah.
And we are really, really, really pushed against a wall right now as human beings. In many ways, we have been for centuries, but it's really up in front of us.
Yeah.
And so the suffering is real. The suffering is extreme. The suffering is taking lives. And I just want this book to help save people.
I like that. I do agree that the world it's in turmoil. It's interesting when I come to my home, when I have my wife and my kids, and I find that we have to center the home, because the world is so chaotic out there. There's so many different messages thrown left and right, and different conversations and different beliefs, and like a lot of it just for us is like being grounded in like our principles and our values as humans, and like, hey, we're going to operate like this. And I know this happened there, and this took place with the teachers at school. And so it's I feel like there's more chaos in just even human interactions too. People are more, unfortunately, in my opinion, they're more like leery of other humans, which that bothers me too, because I like humanity. I love humanity. And when you get to that point, it's like, gosh, like you can't even go outside in public anymore and and not expect to have some kind of confrontation or somebody be triggered by something. But I get it. I think there's a lot going on with people, and I don't know that person's life, and there's a lot of things being brought to the surface. I think even having to be at home with people that you used to avoid for a long time, like that probably might be the cause of some trauma too. Like those things, they start to spike up. So yeah, I can grasp why people need this. And what it's sounding like is, this isn't just a book of like, here you listen. It's more of a because I know when we talked before, it's actual physical practices, things that you have to get. And you're talking about it yourself. Like, I have these practices I talk about. So can you talk to the aspect of like giving people, I guess, hope around the perspective of like you develop skill sets by practicing this, so it's not just a one-time thing, it endures.
Yeah, I'm not just saying here are all the therapies you can do, but here are some ways you can practice those therapeutic practices right here, right now.
Yeah.
And so there's practices for really regulating your nervous system, for calming yourself in the moment, for extending compassion and curiosity and calmness towards yourself and all of your triggered parts. There are behavioral patterns and and mindful practices, the first chapter just allows you to take an honest, compassionate inventory of the ways that you've been running from your life. So from the moment you open the book, you can start to self-soothe. And I write self-help books.
Yeah.
So this is designed for the reader to help themselves. And some of that may be, okay, I'm going to go get that therapist that she just referenced, which I really recommend all throughout the book, or this therapist or that. So I introduce all these different therapeutic practices because you can start the work for yourself and you can go far deeper with the care of another human guiding your path. So I think that but the relief is found in the pages. I want to read you actually something that somebody posted yesterday
Please
about
do.
the book. And
Yeah.
I've seen the most extraordinary testimonials, but I just posted this one, so I want to share it with you. It's so pretty. It's so beautiful. Okay, she said, hold on, let me find it. She said, love this. Your book gave me the confidence and permission slip to face and step into the unknown inside me and peel layers out with courage and compassion.
That's
Boom.
big. That's big.
Big one.
Yeah, because most people don't want to go inside. So when you give somebody the permission through words to do that, that's a life changed.
The permission slip, the courage, and compassion. I was like, that's my mission. That was my mission.
There you go. Yeah, it's gotta feel good. It's like when it was like you get up and you get the goose pimples because it feels good. That's awesome. Man, Gabby, I enjoy every time we get to chat. You got a humongous heart that people feel. I love that you're incredibly transparent, right? Because that's the thing that I think of all things, that's probably the most disarming, right? Because most people won't just talk and share and open up. And so the fact that you do, I think it lets me get to know you. I feel more, I could trust you. You can trust a person who will just let it all fly out. And then I think that's one of the things in the chaos people don't have a lot of nowadays is the trust of humans. So thank you for being open so we can trust you. Where can people grab this book? Like, obviously you can probably get it anywhere, but where would you most want to direct humans?
I would say, first and foremost, just obviously it's all on Amazon or at your local bookstore. But consider, a lot of my readers have read the hardcover and listened to the audiobook, because this is the kind of book that it's there's a lot of storytelling.
Yeah.
So hearing my voice can be a healing experience in itself, and hearing the truth behind those stories, and there's an energetic transmission in those words. And then when you hold the book, you can actually take your notes and dog ear things and return to it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of that's a lot to ask a reader to do, but it is a nice path forward with this.
Yeah.
And then folks can find me at my podcast, Dear Gabby, or at Gabby Bernstein on Instagram. And I'm just trying to do my part to show up with grace and help people feel good.
I love it. I love it. All right. Make sure you guys go out, get this book. And then I have a final question I ask everybody. You can answer however you want to answer it. I'm always curious of the answer because it's fun to hear. They're all different. Here's the question. What promise did God make to the world when he created you?
Good question. The world will be shown a gentler, softer way.
Yeah, I definitely haven't had that one before. That's good. Some people, they respond in ways that are, it's more tied to like their mission, but you respond in a way that was like, I am on display for you to watch. And that's what I think comes through in the books and all the things you do. So thank you for that. Awesome. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. I know you're a very busy human. So I thank you for coming here and giving of your energy and your heart to our people. I appreciate it. Those of you guys who are tuning in right now, thank you so very much for hanging out with us. You could have been anywhere in the world doing quite literally anything, but you chose to come hang. And I pray that it gave you some benefit. If you found something great in this episode, share it with the world. First apply it to yourself, but second, share it with the world, or direct it to somebody that might just need to hear us because you can't reach them, but this conversation can, and hopefully this book can. Outside of that, as always, make the most of your shift moments so you can make shift happen. It's Anthony Trucks and Gabby Bernstein signing off. Hey, thank you for tuning into the Shift podcast. I pray that we gave something amazing to your life. And if you found this episode served you in some way, I would love if you could share it with people you know, people you love, as well as your community, because you never know who needs that simple little seed that can grow into something amazing for their life. And the actual training doesn't stop here. If you want your free copy of the show notes sent to you after every episode so you can get the major points consolidated down, simply go to textanthony.com and message the word notes. Till next time, make shift happen.